Okay, the final item of business this evening is a members' business debate on motion 19672 in the name of George Adam on the importance of football within Scotland. The debate will be concluded without any questions being put, but I'd invite members wishing to participate to press the request to speak buttons and invite George Adam to open the debate around 7 minutes. Mr. Adam.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. No one will be surprised at my choice for a members' debate here tonight. It's about my love of our national game, but more importantly, it's not just about the game itself, but the fantastic work that our football clubs do within our communities throughout Scotland. My own personal love affair with the greatest game in the world started a long time ago in a town called Paisley, as many of my stories do start in a similar manner. Football has been one of the great loves of my life, along with Stacey, which I've obviously bored the chamber with on numerous occasions, my family, and the historic town of Paisley. Because I wasn't just simply raised there, I was dragged up. No, I was woven by it like the famous Paisley pattern, something a wee bit scrappy into a pattern that against the odds seems to have worked, and I quite like me, in the immortal words of John Candy. But football itself, I've loved all my life, whether it's playing as a kid or watching the game, but above all, St Mirren Football Club has always been there. St Mirren seem very popular. I'll take Mr Kerr.
Stephen Kerr.
I was astonished that we got a minute into this speech and you hadn't mentioned St Mirren and you haven't mentioned anything about cup finals, and I'm worried about you. I'm worried about George Adam, Presiding Officer, that he may not be entirely with us today. I don't know.
George Adam.
Don't worry, you won't be disappointed, Mr Kerr, as the speech continues. Because I have followed St Mirren since the halcyon days of Alex Ferguson as manager, and who knew the heartache I would endure for the rest of my life? You know, St Mirren will break your heart. Many football fans will recognise this. Will break your heart, then remind you why you gave it to them in the first place. Even the name of our old home, Love Street, does half the emotional work for you. Love Street, from 1894 to 2009, we played football and it made our lives either worth living or absolutely miserable. And for a big daft boys from Paisley like myself, it was a place where we dared to dream. And I remember how emotional it was when I left Love Street for the last time. Football gives you...
George Adam take an intervention?
Yes. No
Nicola Sturgeon.
I just wonder if George Adam would confirm for the record that great though St Mirren is, and it is a great football team, it is in fact not the best team in Scotland that plays in black and white.
George Adam.
I know that Ms Sturgeon and our family are big supporters of Ayr United, and many a kind of pre-season game have maybe gone down because we've never been in the same leagues. We normally sit one on the top echelons of the football. But it is a nice wee trip down to Ayr the Saturday for a wee friendly. You know, but football can give us these moments like Kenny McLean from the halfway line against Denmark. It provides us sheer joy when Scotland qualifies for the World Cup, which the First Minister has acknowledged when he stated we should have a bank holiday on the Monday after the first game of our World Cup finals. But on that point, I was also reminded by Advice Direct Scotland, for some football can be very expensive for them. Last year they urged Scotland fans to enjoy the excitement of 2026 World Cup responsibly, but try to avoid falling into financial difficulty. With the tournament set to take place in North America, the cost can be astronomical and could easily run into thousands of pounds, so the charity has urged supporters to think twice before borrowing money or high-interest credit in order to fund such trips. But football does unite us in Scotland. Even when we're arguing about over the ins and outs of the game on the issue of VAR, the latest controversy, there's much to be said. But in order to keep the play flowing, I'll just say one thing. Can we not go down a route like rugby and NFL, where the mics are actually live and we can hear the decisions the referees are making? But it's an example of how it brings us all together, regardless of our backgrounds, even when we're having opposing views on the subject. And Presiding Officer in Paisley, we always look after our own, and St Mirren proves this every day. Under the leadership of Gail Brannigan, the club's community work supports people of all ages, from Waynes kicking their first footballs to adults getting back into fitness. It's not just about sport, it's about confidence, belonging and giving people a chance to be part of something bigger. The work goes beyond the pitch too, supporting families, older residents and people facing real challenges, strengthening the very fabric of our town. St Mirren is the heartbeat of Paisley, and through partnerships like the University of West of Scotland, it creates real pathways into education, skills and opportunity. All of this comes from a fan-owned, community-based football team. Yes, Mr Stewart.
Kevin Stewart.
I thank Mr Adam for giving way. I had the great pleasure of going to St Mirren a couple of years back to a Mental Health Awareness Day, which was wonderful, and it was amazing how much work the Community Trust had done. Would Mr Adam agree with me that clubs like St Mirren, like Aberdeen, like Hibs, who are involved in mental health work, including the Changing Rooms project, are doing immensely well for the people of Scotland?
I think in issues like mental health, particularly with males, and football being that conduit to be able to get through to a group of people who don't normally want to talk about issues like that, I think football is extremely important in getting that message across. But for us in Paisley, as a fan-owned, community-based club, it's a model I'm proud to have led the Fans Trust, as it's matched by the success on the pitch. A Premier Sports Cup win, 3 consecutive top 6 finishes and a return to European football after 37 years. But like all clubs, every penny matters. That's why I believe the land round Smizer Stadium should become a sporting community hub, working with UWS, West College Scotland, local schools in the community, not to chase medals, but to build healthier, stronger lives and a better future in Paisley. And that brings me on to... Yes, I will.
Ross Greer.
Very grateful to the member for being generous with his interventions. He was talking about every penny mattering. I wonder if he would agree with me that that's the case for fans as well, and that fans in Scotland are increasingly being priced out of away tickets because we have no equivalent to the price cap that is in place in England, and that's something that all teams in Scotland, particularly top-tier teams, should be seriously considering.
George Adam.
It is a problem for families in particular, who it becomes very expensive if you start following your team throughout the country and travelling and everything else as well. And I do agree that this is something that we have to look at with regards to that. But there's also another long-standing issue in our game, and for me it's the ban of alcohol at football. As members know, I've raised this repeatedly because allowing the sale of alcohol would give our clubs a vital new income stream that could be reinvested directly into football and the community work I've spoken about here today. We've already seen a number of pilot schemes across Scotland, including one recently in Paisley and one in Aberdeen, and it's now time for football authorities to gather that evidence and make that case for change. We're no longer in the 1980s. Football fans and football culture has moved on. The Tartan Army alone are showing how modern supporters represent Scotland positively, responsively, wherever they go. This isn't about excess. It's about adults and family enjoying the matchday experience responsibly, just as they do in other licensed venues like theatres, cinemas and other sports. Yes?
John Mason.
I take his point. Sorry, thank you.
Mr Mason's mic.
Thank you. I take his point that some fans are responsible, but would you accept that we do also have a few problems at football with pyrotechnics and throwing things onto pitches?
George Adam.
I do agree, but that's an issue that's been policed recently, and some clubs actually do need to. From my own point of view, we've actually had a situation where we sat down with the club's young ultras, and it was the older fans that actually policed the younger fans because they were actually embarrassed by what they were bringing the club into. So that's the responsibility of the clubs to deal with that as well. But with regards to alcohol at football, most fans do behave themselves at football grounds, and it can be regulated in exactly the same way as it is in other licensed premises. I'm open to constructive discussion on how we achieve that, but the current reliance on short-term temporary licence is no way for clubs to plan or invest. Licence should sit, as always, with local authority licensing board with proper oversight, enforced where needed. Done properly, this one change could help clubs grow their community impact, strengthen their finances and keep football clubs firmly embedded at the heart of the communities they serve. Presiding Officer, there's much to celebrate in Scottish football, so let's celebrate it, not just the trophies, not just the European nights for St Mirren after 37 years, but the lives touched, the skills nurtured and hopes that are weaved through our whole nation. In Paisley, St Mirren belongs to its fans. St Mirren belongs to Paisley and reminds us when community comes together, there's nothing we cannot achieve. We cheer for the goals, we celebrate the wins and we cry at the heartbreak. That's football and that's St Mirren. And above all, it belongs to us, to Paisley and to the generations yet to come.
Thank you, Mr Adam. We now move to the open debate. I call first Douglas Ross to be followed by Jamie Hepburn. Around 4 minutes. Mr Ross.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And I should begin by declaring an interest as a match official for the Scottish FA. And I have to say, I don't perhaps enjoy every day in here, and sometimes I make that obvious, but today's been one of the good days. I started off Education Committee with Mr Adam, where I was able to speak about milking cows, and I'm ending the debate, or the day, with a debate from Mr Adam speaking about football, another interest of mine. And I have to say, I thought I might be later on in the debate, and I was going to say it's a shame we have such long debates in this chamber about football and no one mentions refereeing, but you called me so early so we can put match officials right up at the top of today's debate, because I doubt many others will mention them. We have already had a passing reference to VAR. But for some people who love football, our national game, maybe have an interest in clubs, but want to be involved in football, refereeing is a route for them. It's been a route that has brought me personally great enjoyment and continue to enjoy football. And it is a route that more and more people, thankfully, are going into because, love us or loathe us, referees are an integral part of the game. And it is now seen as an opportunity for many people to get involved, to get fit, to stay fit, and actually to get to extremely high levels in the game domestically and internationally. And I'll give way to perhaps a recruit to refereeing, Christine Graham.
Well, we must stick it out. I'm really genuinely interested. Why did you choose to be a referee rather than be a player? I mean, it's a serious question. Obviously, I'm out of my depth, but there we go.
Always through the chair, although I am a match official as well.
Of course. We have another qualified referee in the presiding officer. Christine Graham asked why did I choose to be a referee. It wasn't so much a choice, but a decision I could only take because I had no ability whatsoever to play football. So my skills are extremely limited, and no club would ever have me. To the lowest leagues, I was so poor I couldn't get involved, and I'm very encouraged now that my two boys are involved in mini dribblers and are practising far earlier than I did, and hopefully they'll have more opportunities to play. But given that complete lack of talent in playing football, I had to look for an opportunity to still be involved in the game, and I've mentioned the P&J already today. There was a small article in the back of the Press and Journal newspaper looking for recruits to come on board and do the refereeing classes. I did those classes in Elgin. I refereed my first matches down in Ayrshire, where I was at college, doing under-14s, under-15 school matches. And I went from that to still officiating in the Premiership in Scotland and going to World Cup qualifiers, European qualifiers, Champions League matches, officiating players like Ronaldo and Messi, players that my sons now ask me about. I can say I've shared a pitch with them. I was on the pitch on Sunday at the Dundee Hearts match, where fans of football across the clubs say Craig Gordon made one of the best saves seen in Scottish football. I was lucky enough to be on the pitch to see that. So I say this, presiding officer, by way of encouraging future referees to say there are other opportunities, apart from playing, to get involved in football, to see football at some of the highest levels, at some of the greatest sporting achievements that individuals and clubs make, and it's a great opportunity. And I'll briefly give way to George Adam.
On that game that the member officiated on Sunday, was there a VAR decision that had to be made?
Douglas Ross.
There was, and I knew I was going down that road that I probably shouldn't. But in the short time left for me in this debate, I want to say how important VAR is, because I made an error in that match. I wrongly flagged a Dundee player offside when footage shows that he was onside. My error was corrected on the pitch, and the decision was taken that my mistake did not then have an impact on the game. And that's why I support VAR. I think that the match officials shouldn't be the only ones in a stadium that can see a mistake has been made, because I've gone to games where people have seen on their phone straight away that an offside goal shouldn't have been given, and now we're able to correct that. So there are still problems with VAR, and I hope they can be improved going forward, and there is continuous improvement within the Scottish FA to try and iron out some of the problems with VAR, but more often than not it will correct mistakes that we as humans make, and I think that's a good thing. I just briefly want to say, because I know my time is up, we're also seeing some great achievements in Scotland. Nick Walsh recently was promoted to the elite level in European refereeing. So our match officials at Scotland on the international list are now performing, and have been for many, many years, at the highest level in European competitions. Recently we had Molly Alexander, who was a former international female official based up in the Highlands, joining the referee committee here in Scotland. Another positive move. So under Willie Collum, the head of refereeing, Tommy Murphy, the deputy head of refereeing, we've got Martin Atkinson, who came from the English FA and is helping us with VAR. We have got some of the top officials in previous years now involved in the recruitment and retention of the officials for today, and hopefully that will continue going forward. So in a debate about football, I think it is important our match officials are also mentioned and recognised, and I say again, it is a great opportunity for anyone who wants to be involved in the game, who like me lacks any ability to play football. They can, of course, referee, as you have shown yourself, Presiding Officer. Thank you.
Exposing my conflict of interest, Mr Ross, but let me heartily endorse those sentiments. I now call Jamie Hepburn to be followed by Michael Mara in 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, President Officer. I suppose I would start by observing the importance of football can sometimes be overstated. We will all be aware, or I would imagine most of us will be aware of Bill Shankly's age-old maxim about it being a much more important matter than life and death. I think that is somewhat overstating it, but nor should we understate the importance of our national pastime. I think that was never more underlined by the delirium that was that the men's team's qualification for this year's World Cup was met with last year, when literally an earthquake was begun by fans celebrating at Hampden Park. And if I could give one piece of advice to those of a younger vintage than myself, do not do what I did when I was 19 and not think to bother to go to the World Cup we qualified for, because you thought the failure to qualify in 1994 was the aberration and the norm was regular qualification. So if people have the means, and of course there's been a significant debate about the cost, but if people have the means, then I would urge them to try and get to see Scotland in the flesh. I intend to speak largely from a constituency perspective, as I suspect many members will, but I'm going to indulge myself a little at the outset of my contribution and focus a little on my own club. Unlike George Adam, I don't support a club based in my constituency, so I can't combine the two things. But my first and most enduring love has been Partick Thistle Football Club. I am not alone in this institution in having such an affliction. Michael Matheson, Bill Kidd, Ivan McKee share that particular perspective as well, and indeed colleagues in the past, such as Bill Butler, Patricia Ferguson, and indeed Bill Aitken, who some will remember, who's actually a youth player at Partick Thistle as well, are all fans. We have had our ups and downs. Last night, losing in penalties to Inverness Caledonian Thistle in the League Challenge Cup was a particular down, but I would like to reflect, because it is George and Adam's debate, a particular high on the 13th of April 2002 when Partick Thistle won 2-0 at Love Street to secure promotion to the Premier League. I know Mr Adam would have appreciated me recognising that. I could expound much more on my own team. I'll leave it at it is very important for me personally in terms of the friendships I have, been able to take my children to watch the team, and I'll leave it at that. This year is in fact the club's 150th anniversary, something I think should be recognised in this part. But turning to my own area, there is an abundance of youth and amateur clubs, too many to mention individually, but I would like to place on record my thanks to the recreational opportunities they provide to people in my area. But I want to focus on the 4 clubs that are in the Scottish football pyramid, starting with Cumbernauld Colts, who were formed in 1969, have over 500 players involved across a whole range of ages, have a senior team in the Lowland League since 2015. Colleagues will maybe be aware that Jackie McNamara, Derek White, one for George Adam, Dougie Bell, all began their career there. A really important organisation, football club, that provide opportunities to young people in particular, but also do an awful lot more in the community, taking in food bank collections, working with Network Rail to promote safety to the young people that they have playing with them, cooperating with Scottish Gas to put in place school holiday football activity. Another club I'd like to highlight is Cumbernauld United, formed in 1964, a long fixture in junior football. I can hear Mr MacDonald behind me agreeing. I think I recall him telling me once as a a young man, he sold pools coupons to raise funds for Cumbernauld United. So let's place that in the record as well. But they are present in the First Division of the West of Scotland League, and I am wishing them well as they seek to try and gain promotion to the Premier Division of the West of Scotland League. And of course, their most famous player is Kenny Dalglish, who began his career on loan from Celtic. Both have growing women's teams. Last year, Cumbernauld United won the regional league play. Cumbernauld Colts got to the final of the Regional League Cup, and it's great to see that they're growing. And I would also reflect that the clubs compete annually in the Cumbernauld Cup, raising money for local charity. I see my thing flashing, so will just indulge me quickly, otherwise I'll get in trouble to mention Colsaith Rangers from the 1913 Scottish Junior Cup winners in 1955 and 1967, and Colsaith Athletic from the 1999 with a focus on youth football, who also have a team in the West of Scotland League, who did, until fairly recently, have the youngest manager in the entire Scottish football period before he moved on to Falkirk Football Club. I thank them all, and I thank you for indulging, because if I only mentioned the Cumbernauld clubs and not the Colsaith clubs, I would have been in trouble. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Hepburn. It wouldn't be a debate about Scottish football if there wasn't somebody dampening the mood, but I'm conscious that we reached decision time late. There are events on in the Parliament this evening, and therefore I'm going to have to keep members to their time limit from here on in. Call Michael Manna to be followed by Finlay Carson. Up to 4 minutes.
I'll do my best, Presiding Officer. Can I thank George Adam for tabling this motion, and can I add my congratulations to St Mirren for their League Cup win. I've seen the Buddies win silverware, the Scottish Cup, back in 1987. I can say it was a thoroughly miserable experience for a 7-year-old Dundee United supporter. Perhaps Mr Ross might be able to enlighten me as to why Kevin Gallagher was offside when Ian Ferguson put the ball in the net. I think it was a ridiculous decision, frankly. But as Celtic found out to their cost just a few weeks ago, for every winner there has to be a loser, and so life goes. Scottish football is a very significant part of our national culture and our daily conversation. It's not just a business, but it's also a significant part of our economy, but it is a part of who we are as a country, and the most football-obsessed people in Europe. That's who we are. The highest per head attendance rate of any national professional league. And these are the reasons that our Parliament should discuss the state of our national game. It is important because it matters to people and it matters to Scotland. It's also incumbent on us to recognise the challenges that the football monoculture of our sporting landscape presents for diversifying sporting activity and ensuring maximum participation in the game. That includes the women's game, which has made great organisational strides across the past decade. That being said, I strongly believe the game should manage itself and be supported to do just that. And that is part of that essential culture. It's what makes the game representative of the communities that we live in and serve. And that's what I think other members have already pointed to. Lawmakers and government should act to protect that independence and the health of local institutions and not attempt to run them. And I think that is a fine line to be tread at times. The approach for government should be partnership, and the approach for Parliament should be hold a mirror to the game. And on that basis, I want to comment on 3 issues and seek responses from the Minister in her closing speeches. Firstly, in my engagement with clubs, and not just in my region but more widely, I am concerned that the stadium infrastructure of Scotland is reaching a critical moment when the post-Taylor report era of early 1990s seated stadia are approaching the end of their lifespan. They're increasingly challenging to maintain, and compliance issues with access and safety are a growing concern as that burden increases on clubs. The next Scottish Government should turn attention to what this means for the professional game over the coming decade, for standards and for safety, for access for fans. I also want to advocate a little bit on behalf of Woking football. And advocate for the inclusion of that game and what we've heard of just yesterday as a summer of sport for Scotland. I've played alongside my father in recent weeks. He's in his mid-70s. There's a weekly game with Tayport Junior FC. Walking football can help men out of loneliness. It can help with healthy exercise, and it improves mental health. I'd like to pay tribute to Paul Berg, Tom Malone and the rest of the group who organises the weekly sessions in Dundee. But this is happening right across Scotland and all the communities that we represent. I think it's a quiet revolution in how we see physical activity in later life, particularly for men who are so enthralled with the game. But I also think that it can combine a cross-generational cross-generational aspect and also across sexes. So it should be considered. Perhaps the Minister might explain how the opportunities to include walking football into that next summer of sport. And I would say that pretty much the only thing that has recovered in this country since COVID has been attendance numbers at football, most likely because the SNP government and their Cabinet Secretary for COVID recovery had nothing at all to do with it. But I do wonder if that pent-up frustration of not being able to be with people watching football, instead it was that streamed football at home, was a thoroughly miserable experience for so many of us. It's not what the game is about. So in any case, growing attendances at clubs like St Johnstone, Morton, Motherwell, St Mirren, clubs traditionally out with that top rank, I think talk to the culture that's been imported by YouTube into Scotland, fan culture. But that does come with its challenges, Presiding Officer. I know my time does as well. I'm coming to a close. We've already heard about pyro, but the government must consider how this exuberance and passion for local teams can be balanced with safety, inclusivity and preventing any widespread return of violence that we saw in the 1980s. Cocaine use is a significant issue within this, Presiding Officer. I'm closing. I hope the Minister might reflect on these three issues that I've raised with her today, both in our closing speech and in the course of our next few weeks of work.
Okay, thank you. And I call Finlay Carson to be followed by Christine Graham. Up to 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Football has always played a crucial role in the psyche of most Scots, whether they follow a big team or just the local lad side. Whether it's the emotion of the game, the intensity of the sport, the inevitable characters like George Adams it throws up, or simply just being part of the whole picture, soccer remains at the forefront of most participants and audience as one of our national sports. It also does crazy, unexpected things to you, including leading you into temptation. Oh yes, and how. I know of someone who was standing having a couple of drinks with her friends in a bar in Dumfries one minute, and a few days later, unexpectedly sitting on a plane alongside the team heading to Copenhagen and to Denmark to watch Queen of the South play in its first and only major European Cup match, the UEFA Cup tie against FC Northland on the 26th of August 2008. Who would have thought it? The Doonhamers on tour. Caught up by the sheer emotion and the rare opportunity to witness such a historic sporting spectacle, sometimes you just have to go with the flow. Well, that's what I told my wife, my now ex-wife. And being part of that impressive, almost 1,000 Queen's army of fans will live with me for the rest of my life. You just had to be there, as the chances of it happening again are, well, somewhat slim. In recent times, the game has changed, especially for clubs like Queen of the South and my other team, Stranraer, if they're to survive in today's finance-driven climate. Gone are the days of large crowds and less local derbies, and with clubs now concentrate a lot of their effort on becoming even more community-orientated under like Queen of the South, under the excellent stewardship of Dan Armstrong, a former Queen's player but now the youngest CEO in British professional football. Dan is a true gentleman and a real asset to the club. His postgraduate degree in football business and proactive engagement with other clubs in the SPFL and SFA have strengthened the club's regional and national profile. He's been incredibly successful in reinforcing community ties, enhancing fundraising, modernising commercial efforts and bolstering clubs' visibility. Dan and his crew work tirelessly to connect with the community and support the people of Dumfries and Galloway. He successfully strengthened both educational and academic links with local schools, colleges, universities, the NHS and local clubs, as well as enterprises to sustain the club and build the footfall. First-team players are encouraged to take part in as many of the school activities as possible to provide role models. Dan and the Queen of the South Community Trust have received national recognition, including an invitation to 10 Downing Street and being honoured at the King's Garden Party at Holyrood, an accolade for their regional community impact. And that comes along with many other awards. Among the many initiatives launched more recently has been the Changing Room project, addressing men's mental health issues, while walking football, as we've already heard, remains a favourite for those seeking a more active approach. Poverty remains a major worry, and the club has not shied away, running 3 separate breakfast clubs attracting more than 100 young people on a daily basis. The Extra Time project also involves the distribution of meals to many local families who would struggle otherwise. Donations from local food suppliers are also encouraged to support the club's food bank. Similarly, Stranraer Football Club shows a community club can be a civic anchor by using the public space at Stair Park to bring people together and delivering tangible local benefits, such as advanced health and public participation in sport. Again, Walking Football has proved a winner with all ages, and many seniors get to relive their youth. Stranraer's mini kickers run alongside local nurseries to build physical literacy and nutrition awareness, while in school soccer sessions regularly attract around 700 primary children. Presiding Officer, the club is working with grassroots clubs like Millennium FC and Lochins Boys Club to create under-13 and under-15 teams. And the club also involved with Alzheimer's Scotland and Versus Arthritis to offer safe, sociable activities for older adults. I don't have enough time today, but it would be remiss of me not to mention other clubs, Threave Rovers, Dalbeattie Star and my own hometown club of St Cuthbert Wanderers, who do hugely important stuff in our communities. Presiding Officer, football remains a winner thanks to these wonderful community-inspired ideas and initiatives, and long may it continue.
Thank you. I can see my appeal is falling on deaf ears. I may have to resort to disciplinary action if behaviour does not improve. I'm going to call Christine Graham, followed by Brian Whittle. Up to 4 minutes, Ms Graham.
Why is that always said just before I rise to speak? Anyhow, I too congratulate George Adam on securing this debate, though it was, of course, too much to hope that it would be a Paisley-free zone. After all, it's George Adam's specialist subject should Mastermind come knocking. 8 references at least to Paisley. Having confessed previously in public that sport, either as a participant or fan, is not my DNA, including refereeing, colleagues might wonder why I've opted to speak in this debate. Football remains a foreign land with a language of its own. To VAR or not to VAR, that is the question. Names of people being mentioned which mean absolutely nothing to me. I'm focusing on the extraordinary turnaround in the attitude to women and girls in football, words that we would never have seen previously side by side on the page. It's not so long ago when I remember girls were not even considered to play football. And even at a competitive level, it's only recently that the stands have begun to fill up. And that's partly due to the success of the Lionesses and Scotland's women's national football team qualifying for the FIFA Women's World Cup for the first time in 2019, and as of June 2025, 24th in the FIFA Women's World Rankings. They've worked their magic, their inspiration, as have women's Premier League teams such as Aberdeen, Celtic, Rangers, Hamilton, Academicas, Hearts, Hibs and lots of others. All that high-profile activity has encouraged development where it really matters, at grassroots. Which brings me to Pennycook Athletic Football Club, part of the town since 1888, built as many are on volunteers, families and local sponsors, running more than 20 boys and girls teams. It also gives them a place for girls to belong, with early touches for the teeny-weenies through to the teens. Hundreds of girls turn out week in, week out, to play football. Teams supported and sponsored not only by the invaluable volunteers, but local businesses. Girls' football in Gore Bridge is also booming, with dedicated squads in multiple age groups, matching the national picture, where female participation is now at a record high with Arniston Rangers Youth Football Club, which has some 300 youngsters with its girls' sections playing across the age group. So, football, you can talk about it even if you're not a fan of the game, you don't get overexcited, you don't weep at its defeats, but you can see how valuable it is to others. Because it's not just about the road of Hampden, the glamour and dreams of competing, let alone winning the Premier League or being in the national team, but about local parks bursting with excitable young girls being part of a team, not sitting in front of a computer, running about even on a dreich day, playing to win, of course, for the challenge and the sheer fun of it, learning about the thrill of winning and dealing with defeat and growing from these experiences. Life skills, not just football skills, and you might even say it's a bit of a rehearsal for life itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Graham. Before calling the next speaker, I'm conscious of the number of members who still want to participate in the debate. I'm minded, therefore, to accept a motion under Rule 8.14.3 of Standing Orders to extend the debate by up to 30 minutes. I invite George Adam to move such a motion.
Moved, Presiding Officer.
Thank
Never
you.
thought I'd be saying that again for a while.
The question is that the debate be extended by up to 30 minutes. Are we all agreed? Yes. That is agreed. I now call Brian Whittle to be followed by David Russell. Up to 4 minutes, Mr Whittle.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer. Are we sitting comfortably with this extra half hour? Of course, can I thank George Adam for bringing this debate to the Chamber. It seems a bit of a regular occurrence now that Mr Adam and I are extolling the virtues of football in this Chamber. I will start, of course, Deputy Presiding Officer, with a declaration of interest in that I have coached at Ayr United, George Adams' beloved St Mirren, and at Kilmarnock. And I can even claim, quite rightly, I can even claim to have played for Ayr United's first team. It was pre-season, it was 45 minutes, it was a half-time, and I can remember the then manager Gordon Dale's dulcet tones shouting across, "Whittle, get your shinnies on, we've run out of players." And so I have played 45 minutes for Ayr United, and my contribution was well summed up in the Ayrshire Post report, which said he ran about a lot and drank a lot of water. But they still talk about my mazy run to this day, Deputy Presiding Officer. So my football career after that was tragically cut short through a severe lack of talent, of course.
Christine Graham.
Both your football boots on during that time.
Always through the chair. Brian Whittle.
There was no need for that, Deputy Presiding Officer, and there may be a point of order later on. So, and I wanted to thank Douglas Ross actually for bringing up the bit that I'd forgot about what participation is all about. It's not just about being active in sport. You can also be a coach, of which I still am. I bookend my day, my week in here. With coaching, I'm still a level 4 coach and have been a senior coach for longer than I was an athlete now, which is a scary thought. And those officials and administrators that keep our sports going and of themselves participate in sport. I am obviously associated with what I would class as proper sport. But I know the motion points to the role of football, and football clubs play in our wider communities. And I think that is a crucial point. Many supporters are being encouraged to participate in exercise and in weight loss programmes organised by the club. I've visited the mental health groups in football clubs as well. Many of the participants would not access similar help from statutory services in clubs like Kilmarnock and Ayr and St Mirren, Hearts and Hibs, to name but a few. You see, Deputy Presiding Officer, football clubs provide an environment that supporters feel comfortable in. They walk in the same paths as their heroes and heroines, and they watch week in, week out. Football clubs are central to many community activities, way beyond just watching the club. And I do think it's important that we do support those efforts, not just assume that they will foot the bill. Even given the kind of interactions is a very positive thing for the football club itself. Those bonds with their respective communities delivering for long-term future of the clubs as well as that of their supporters. And we need to look at how we can build on that relationship for the health and future of those communities. You won't be surprised, Deputy Presiding Officer, to hear me advocate for the role of sport in general in our society. I don't think we give the value to sport and activity that it deserves, and I've said that many times. Physical activity is a key cornerstone of good health, and we need to consider how we do more to encourage physical activity, given our very poor health record in Scotland. School sport has declined along with access to sport, at the same time as a number of fast food outlets have exploded, and that cost of obesity to the Scottish economy now stands at £5 billion, mental health bill at £4.5 billion. So, Presiding Officer, we do need to take sport much more seriously than we do and ensure support is there, whether that be in school sport, community sport or the impact of professional football. Football is perceived, as I've said, by many to have money in their coffers. That can be far from the truth, and I would like to see some co-investment into community projects around the football club, efficient use of funds, encouraging clubs to continue their investment in their communities. We have a wonderful summer of sport ahead. Let's partner sports clubs, including football clubs, to ensure we maximise the potential legacy for our communities, because we haven't been particularly good at that in previous years. And I finish again by thanking George Adam for allowing me to talk sport one more time. Deputy Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Mr Whittle. I now call David Russell to be followed by Fulton McGregor. Up to 4 minutes. Mr Russell.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I think we in this chamber can spend an awful lot of time focusing on what is wrong with the country. So I thank Mr Adam for bringing this positive debate to the chamber. I'm still playing twice a week. I know it's hard to believe because I'm creaking at the seams a wee bit. I've been to 3 World Cups, so I think about going to the next one if my brother delivers the tickets for me. But it's been wonderful to learn about the breadth of the community programmes based in many local clubs. I actually looked up St Mirren there and about the Men's Shed programme, and they have a team for those with additional support needs, which is tremendous. Football can be controversial at times. It's local clubs and supporters really that can be a medium for social good, and I want to briefly call attention to the several local groups in my area where one group of supporters actually donated over 200 toys to the Mackin Trust, which is a support group that helps young children. You know, so that made that event a tremendous time for them, especially in these hard times. Beyond community work, football clubs are an important place for friends and family to come together, for families and friends, old and new, to come to bond, discuss, and I even disagree about the teams. For possibly most of us, it's a right well-earned reward for the end of the working week, letting some steam off. Football, too, is an important part of childhood. It's spurred me, you know, whether it was rain, hail or snow, you wanted to go out and kick a ball about, regardless of the weather, to spend hours with friends in the park, learning teamwork and competition and keeping healthy, doing a power of good without feeling like it's an onerous task, and above all, it's just plain fun. Of course, and this is particularly important, the current climate, football is fantastically cross-cultural. People from different backgrounds, religions and even languages can enjoy the same game as the players and the spectators. Football in Scotland attracts fans from all over the world, and a visit to some of the remotest parts of the world, I mentioned that if you're from Scotland, they'll either say, are you Celtic or Rangers? But that's forgetting the fact that they are only 2 out of the 42 senior teams in Scotland. The debate is absolutely right. Economic and cultural capital of Scotland, football is an invaluable resource. And finally, the SPL is looking like it's going to be the most nail-biting season for years, with a few teams competing at the top. So I'm quite sure it will inspire some constructive debate over the coming months. Also, my own home team, the Ackies, have new owners, and I heartily welcome that announcement, and I wish them every success in the future. I also look forward to engaging with the new owners in the near future. The Ackies, like all local teams, are a great doorstep asset for promoting cohesion in our communities. And last but not least, I personally want to congratulate the Scotland team for qualifying for the World Cup final in North America, and I, for one, can't wait for that. I actually looked to them all strip the other day there, so it's 28 years ago since the last one, but for some strange reason it must have shrunk in the wash because it doesn't fit me now. However, a wee note of dismay is the prices for the tickets for the games are shockingly high, and I'm really disappointed that they're going to be out of the reach for many genuine fans, which I believe it's a great pity considering this rare, marvellous achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Russell. Always got to be careful of the boil wash. I call the final speaker in the open debate, Fulton McGregor, up to 4 minutes. Mr McGregor.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you for letting me in when I pressed my button. I feel I must now repay that good deed by confirming that at least you are one official who is, for Christine Graham's benefit, who is also good at football. And Douglas Ross admitted that perhaps he wasn't.
I think you're going to prompt a point of order at this point, Mr McGregor.
Thank you. It gives me, I want to thank George Adam for bringing the debate to the Chamber, and it gives me a chance to talk about the pride of Coatbridge, Albion Rovers. Yes.
Point of order, Christine Graham.
After that obsequious remark by Fulton McGregor, I take it it's still being held to 4 minutes.
And possibly less was the indication I had. But Fulton McGregor, please continue.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And to speak about the pride of Coatbridge, a chance to speak about the pride of Coatbridge Albion Rovers, and also to right a personal wrong, because just before the summer recess period, I lodged a motion in here for members' business about the plight of Albion Rovers at that time, the financial plight they were in. For one reason or another, that members' business never came to fruition. So it gives me the opportunity to talk about it today. So I want to thank George Adam for that. Because in 2023, after over 140 years of history in the top flights, Albion Rovers were relegated to the lower leagues. And it's been a very difficult period with huge financial consequences for the team. The difficult period has been overcome, I'm told, and the club has now stabilised in terms of financials, but their position in the league doesn't suggest that they are looking to be promoted again, at least not in the next couple of years. The fans are enjoying the new challenges, going to new grounds, and I want to give a shout out to my nephew Flynn and his friends, who see themselves almost as Rovers casuals and go to every game home and away. I think they were up at Cowdenbeath at the weekend there, so they're travelling everywhere and absolutely loving it. And that's what communities do. They back the club no matter what division that they're in. I've been having regular meetings and discussions with the club, and last year I worked with the club to get them meetings with the SFA and the Scottish Football Partnership Trust. And since those meetings, there's been a lot of progress made. They're now looking towards becoming a community club, a bit like George Adam mentioned in terms of St Mirren. So they're doing a lot of work to try and change their pitches so that they can offer more to the community. They've got an anchor club in Albion Rovers community club in place, and they're developing other relationships with, for example, Coatbridge FC, where my own son plays, and they've got a good package lined up in terms of the disability game and the girls and women's game, etc. And I think that's the way clubs like Albion Rovers need to go, and it's been good that the people who are behind the club are getting on board with that. And I just want them to know, and I'll put this on the record here, that I'll continue to support them, because the town and the community need Albion Rovers, and they very much depend on it. George Adam also made a really good point, I think, about the selling of alcohol at games. I think this is something that can help smaller clubs. We often think about this debate in terms of the big two clubs and the bigger clubs, but actually it can really help the smaller clubs. Albion Rovers have actually opened a bar that they can sell alcohol before and after the game. It's been a big help in helping to stabilise their current situation, which looked really dire, as I said at one point. So that again has been really helpful, and I just wanted to lend my weight to George Adams' argument there. Lots of other good work within the constituency as well: Bridgend FC and Moodiesburn, Burnbank FC and Dimbeth FC, amongst many others in Coatbridge, but I do not have time to talk about them all, Presiding Officer. And I will end on that point. Another good debate today, and I support George Adams' motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McGregor. I now call Marie Todd to respond to the debate. Minister, in 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer Tapalow Offagarrieli. And thank you to everyone who has contributed to what's been a really positive debate. As was very evident during Keith Brown's debate in December, following the draw for the World Cup group stages, football clearly means a lot to a great many people, both in this chamber and across the country. St Mirren clearly means a lot to George Adam, and it is wonderful to see a fan-owned club not only thriving on the park, and let me offer my congratulations on the record on their fantastic victory in the League Cup final in December, but also playing such a huge role in their local community of the park. I do feel obliged, actually, to pitch in for Queen's Park, though, after the intervention of our former First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. Queen's Park, of course, also play in black and white, and many who know me know I'm Glasgow by marriage, and the Todds have had a very long association and love affair with that club, so I'll be in trouble if I don't mention them in this debate. So, the network of football clubs across Scotland is incredible. OK, George Adam.
George Adam.
It was just to make the intervention. Of course, with your husband's family being Queen's Park fans for so long, he'll be aware that the beautiful game as the passing game came from Queen's Park Football Club. You know, so when we say football's coming home, it's clearly in Scotland, the professional, well, not the professional game in Queen's Park's case, but it's clearly Queen's Park Football Club that actually created the game that we currently know.
Again to the Chair. Minister.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be a true Todd if I wasn't completely aware that when football's coming home, we mean home to Queen's Park. Now, the network of football clubs across Scotland is absolutely incredible. Football is the country's #1 sport, with over 2,500 clubs spread across the country. Currently, there are over 150,000 registered players, with a further 50,000 coaches and volunteers. If we also include the number of recreational participants, parents, fans and influencers in the local community, the Scottish FA estimates that football clubs impact more than 900,000 people every week in Scotland. That's phenomenal. The sport holds a central place in Scotland's cultural landscape. Annually, there's over 6.8 million attendances at matches involving Scottish professional football teams and international matches. The Premier League also attracts the highest average weekly attendance per head of population in Europe. Now, Scotland has some of the best community football clubs in Europe, organisations that are deeply rooted in their community and which help support players, coaches, volunteers and parents, and we've heard of many of them this evening. The role of these clubs within our society is fundamental, and it can connect communities far beyond other statutory and non-statutory organisations. George Adam rightly talked about St Mirren and the role they play in the community. The breadth and diversity of the communities that these clubs service is considerable, and many operate in areas of significant deprivation. That became crystal clear in the COVID pandemic, when many of these organisations very quickly pivoted from delivering football sessions to kids to delivering food parcels and providing hope for many people in the local community. The main motivation for our clubs is evident. They want to serve and better their local community and use the power of football to help positively impact on the lives of so many. The unique reach of football, and from the Scottish Government's point of view, its ability to deliver across multiple Scottish Government portfolios, offers a platform to improve, influence and develop Scottish society and impact on a wide number of key thematic areas, both on and off the pitch. Scottish football's got a track record of delivering on Scottish Government national and local outcomes through projects and programmes often delivered by the SPFL Club's community trusts and foundations and supported by the SPFL Trust. Now, just before Christmas, I was delighted to be invited by St Johnstone to attend their Festive Friends Christmas lunch at McDermott Park. That was a community initiative by the St Johnstone Community Trust in partnership with the SPFL Trust. And these things will have been happening all over the country. But the intention is to combat loneliness for isolated older people during Christmas by delivering hampers, hosting festive lunches like the one I attended at McDermott Park, providing companionship, often with surprise visits from players. And in December, actually, the team manager, Simo Valakari, came along to speak to people who were there. Just a wonderful experience. The Scottish Government is also working in partnership with the Scottish FA to deliver before school, after school and holiday clubs through our very successful Extra Time programme. Now, that programme, and I've met the people in St Mirren who deliver it. Yes, I'll give way to Christine Graham.
Would the Minister agree with me that when we have such difficulties prizing young people away from their electronic devices, the fact that hundreds of young people, young girls and young boys, training sessions and competing at the weekends, it's doing such a service to their mental well-being as well as their physical well-being?
Minister.
Absolutely, and the Extra Time programme is absolutely about that. It's supporting Scotland's most deprived communities. It's targeted at primary school children who are most at risk of living in poverty. It's also contributing to our national mission to end child poverty, and it'll help to reduce inequalities in accessing activities for families living in poverty. They provide activities that wrap around the school day. The Extra Time programme offers, because of that, parents and carers the opportunity to access and sustain work, training and education, enabling them to improve their household income and so helping reduce poverty. But it also provides children with great opportunities to take part in activities round the school day and in the holidays, improving their confidence, their health, their fitness, and crucially getting them off their devices and supporting their educational outcomes too. So that initiative has been funded by the Scottish Government since October 2023, initially supporting 25 clubs and trusts to deliver before school, after school and holiday clubs for primary school children from low-income families to over 2,500. In May 25, we invested £5.5 million in that programme with the aim of expanding delivery to all local authority areas in Scotland and supporting up to 5,000 children and their families living who are most at risk of living in poverty. During yesterday's budget, we announced that we'll maintain that £5.5 million investment for next year. That recognises the success of the programme. Furthermore, we're investing in an additional £2.5 million to deliver wider after-school activities offer for primary school children, improving outcomes for children and supporting parents around the school day, helping them to sustain employment. That's just two examples of the way in which football clubs are supporting their communities. We want to support the unique reach of football and football clubs in Scottish society to positively impact both physical and mental health and to improve the well-being of our communities. And we've announced £2 million for football in yesterday's budget to support those outcomes as part of a summer of sport package. Now, I know we're running on, but before I finish, I want to pick up on a couple of points raised in the debate. George Adam mentioned the issue of alcohol at football matches. Now, we're always open to discussions with football authorities, but there's no plans at this time to remove the existing general restrictions on alcohol at football. Members will be aware of the concerns around public order mentioned by John Mason, but there are also public health concerns. I'm Drug and Alcohol Minister. Each year we lose 1,200 people last year to direct alcohol deaths. We're losing far too many people to direct alcohol deaths, and the public health advice would be to narrow access, not to increase access. I'm always keen to listen to the constructive evidence-based approach that our football authorities are taking, but it's challenging.
Very briefly, George Adam.
I take on point the Minister's point of view, Presiding Officer, but at the end of the day, when I mentioned specifically in my speech, was not talking about excessive drinking. It was effectively just friends having a couple of drinks before the game, having a chat about the game. It's not about excessive drinking in any shape or form.
Minister.
Yeah, and as I say, I absolutely understand that. The member will understand the challenges in giving the mixed message, though. But as I said, we are always content to hear from the football authorities and to hear the evidence-based approach that they are taking, currently piloting within the law, and I think that's a helpful thing to do. On pricing, Ross Greer mentioned pricing. Really worth noting that Hibs had an absolute sellout at the weekend after selling tickets for £5 for their Premier League game. To Michael Mara, I'll get back to you on the stadiums in writing because there's quite a lot to update you on. Walking football, love it, tried it, think it's excellent. Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland have a great collaboration, so I'll certainly consider your suggestion of including that in the summer of sport. The question of behaviour, we've got a consultation out at the moment on football banning orders, so anyone listening, please let us know your views by the 23rd of February. Douglas Ross, thanks for highlighting the issue around officials. Without officials, and many people loathe them rather than love them, but without officials the game would not happen. Thanks to Christine Graham for highlighting the women's game, and to Davy Russell, if I can be so bold. See that wee shrunk jersey that you've got? I could happily give it a new home. So, thank you, George Adam, for a vintage shirt I think he offered me, wasn't it? I thank George Adam very much for bringing this debate to the Chamber today. It's only right that we recognise the many and varied positive impacts of football into communities right across Scotland, the numbers of people involved every week, and I'm committed to continuing to work with the Scottish FA on supporting and growing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I think it's entirely appropriate that we finish the debate with the swapping of shirts. On that note, I close the debate and close this session of Parliament.